Hi, I'm John. This is my show, An American Scheme, where I am proving that Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's actual mother. So here's Michael Jackson's actual father, Smokey Robinson, doing an interview on Vlad TV for DJ Vlad and shit. This just came out, so I haven't seen the whole entire interview. This is just a little few-minute clip thing that came on. So let's go ahead and watch this, because he's talking a lot about the actual time in history, about that time when Diana got pregnant by Smokey. It's one of those things with Vlad. I know I've sent him an email, and my videos are there on YouTube, but I don't know if he's... I know that he's a big fan of Michael Jackson. That's one of the reasons I've tried to contact him before and stuff, but it's hard to contact these people and shit, right? So it's one of those things. I don't know if he's ever heard about my story. I don't know if he knows anything about my story, but I have tried to contact him. I am here on YouTube. Maybe he's heard my story, because he's talking like around, like, the stuff he's talking about, he's like right about that same time, and he's talking about the people who I'm talking about, right? So let's listen to a little bit of this, and I'm going to show you some other things to show you that there's more to than what Smokey's saying here, right? And unless you've got the information that I've got, then you can't come back and ask Smokey a follow-up question. Like when he says something and Smokey puts a certain date on it, Vlad doesn't have the information to come back and say, no, wait, there's more to this and shit, right? Which then, you got to be careful when you're saying the facts and stuff. If you have the facts, you don't want to make Smokey look bad on an interview. He's being nice enough to come to your show and do an interview, right? So Vlad doesn't want to expose him and be like, dude, you got Diana Ross pregnant when she was 13, you scumbag, and you were married. Well, actually, he wasn't married at that time and shit, right? Because we're going to get into that in this video. So here, let's listen to a little bit of this.
Well, and then by age 11, you actually put together your first group, the Five Chimes. Yes.
So real quick, I just want to say so Smokey's first group called the Five Chimes at age 11, right? I just want to mention this, that his first group called the Five Chimes, okay? Smokey's dad, I'd have to go back and look, but his dad had a nickname, was his dad's nickname, I think, was Five. I think that was his dad's nickname, was Five, right? So then Smokey at age 11, he starts a band called the Five Chimes. And then the Jacksons are called the Jackson Five. Now, this is just a thing I'm theorizing about, but it's a thing that maybe Smokey or Barry could have told Joe, hey, what about the Jackson Five? You guys have a band, why don't you try the Jackson Five? And it could have been connected to the thing with Smokey, being that Smokey was the Five Chimes and his dad was Five. But that's just a thing I'm just completely theorizing about. That's like, see, when I'm telling you a theory that I don't have, like, now, I've got the evidence to show you, like right there, Smokey's band was called the Five Chimes. I could go back and show you Smokey saying his dad's name is Five. I could show you that stuff. I could show you the Jacksons generating the origin of the name, the Jackson Five. I could show you them talking about that, how the name originated and stuff, right? I could show you all of those things, but then I could interject my story, and I could say, well, with the interjection of my story, then I can create the theory that maybe this has some relation to the Jackson Five. Maybe it has some relation to the Smokey being the Five Chimes and his dad being Five, but I don't have any other further evidence, so I won't say that that's for sure. It's just something that, like, when I do things, these are thoughts that are going in my head. I don't always tell you guys about these thoughts that are going on in my head, but it's just one of those things, that this is like one of those interesting little things, right? And that he's 11. It's one of these things too, because like Michael, look at Michael's already becoming a big star by the time he's 11 and stuff, right? And what you'll see is you'll find the same parallels between Smokey Robinson and Michael Jackson with the talent of singing and stuff. You'll see that they came right out. They were singing instantly, wanting to entertain people and stuff, right? And as you could see, Michael was not shy at all, not even at all, when he was young and stuff. But then some reason when he gets older, he becomes shy. It's like, well, that's because everyone around him is having sex, and Michael's the only one not having sex. So that's how he regresses, because he doesn't develop his natural sexuality, which would have developed his personality traits and stuff. That didn't develop naturally, which would have developed naturally if he would have been an actual member of the Jackson Five, and he had all the older brothers, and he's in a rock group, and they're touring around, they got all the groupies. He would have had some form of a sexuality that developed. And I'm not saying it's natural. Like, people would say, oh, well, he went to school and he fell in love with his high school sweetheart. And that's not what I'm talking about, your natural sexuality. What I'm talking about is that the years. Like, when you hit puberty, and you start to have interest in the opposite sex, and you have friends or family that are encouraging you to participate in sexual activities with the opposite sex, that's a natural progression, okay? But Michael, who obviously would have had that natural progression when you look at him being in the family and being in the band, But because he did not have that natural progression, that's why his sexuality progression regresses back into more of a childlike state, and that's what you see him later in life when he's acting all shy and innocent. That's because he's never had sex. That's how that develops that way and shit, right? So, let's go and get a little more of this.
Okay, and with your childhood friend Ronald White and Pete Moore.
Yes.
So that was the first time you actually were singing in a group?
No, it wasn't the first time I ever sang in a group. We had a group in elementary school, but it wasn't anything. It was just, you know, 4 guys, we get together and just sing sometimes, but it wasn't like...
Okay, well, it wasn't like that Michael was given to you from the creator of Motown Records, because that's the same thing. With the Jacksons, he'd be the same thing. Oh, okay. Yeah, well, we started a group like Michael. Yeah, when I was little, I was in elementary school, I started a group with the band and stuff, right? But see, the same thing with Smokey. Well, that band doesn't have the lead singer being given to them from the creator of Motown Records, who's starting, you know, to build Motown and stuff, right? So at that time, they're just kids, right? That's what the Jacksons would have been, the same thing. It just would have been the same kind of thing, but that's not what was occurring in the Jackson household, because Joseph was given Michael from Berry Gordy. So at the time when the Jackson 5, like 1963, when they really start to form, that's the same time that Motown is just exploding and shit too. Smokey's exploding, the Supremes are exploding, all the main bands, Motown is just full on exploding and shit. Exactly at that same time. Because in 1963, the Jackson 5 get formed, Smokey becomes vice president of Motown in 63, and Diana becomes the lead singer of the Supremes. All that happened like right there in 63. Right at that time when Michael's like 5 years old. Right, so Michael, he just would have been a normal kid in the family. Okay, we got a little group, we play at the school and stuff, right? That just would have been what it was. But that's not what it was. This band instantly had a direct focus that they were going to Motown. That Joe was building a band, and this band was going to Motown. They knew that this was what's happening, because the whole thing is that the kid is the different thing. The kid's got all the talent. The kid's got the connection to Berry Gordy and Motown. That's what's different. But because the same thing was occurring, like same thing with Smokey. He started a band right when he's in elementary school, and that was like first grade. I've heard him talk about this stuff too. Like right early when he's really young, at 5, 6. Same thing with like Michael and stuff, right? Michael's doing that. The same correlation of the life experience of what you see that Smokey's life, you see that the same thing is taking place in Michael's life too. Same life stories occurring.
When I started the Chimes, or when we started the Chimes, we were serious about it then. You know, there were groups everywhere in our neighborhood, and we wanted to compete with them. So we started our group, and Ron and Pete and I. And we had 2 other guys singing with us, a guy named James and a guy named Clarence. And eventually they quit, you know, before we started the Matadors and evolved that into the Miracles and all that. They had quit. But yeah, we started when I was 11. We were singing in elementary school. And we used to love to sing because that attracted the girls. Right. The girls came to hear us. You know?
Right, so that attracts the girls. So that shows you. He's only 11 years old when he's talking about this, what he's talking about. He said, so instantly he realized when you made a band that it garnered the attention of girls. You got the attention of girls, and they're giving you attention. He's only 11. But because he's starting to progress into his natural sexuality, he likes that attention. And he wants more of it. Just like what all normal people would do. Same thing what would have occurred with Michael. He would have liked that attention. He would have wanted more of it. He would have kept doing it, which means he would have had a natural sexuality progression through his teenage years. Michael would have. That's why you would not see him acting the way you see him when he's acting older. But sorry, let me get a drink. My throat gets all dry like that. So, but it's because that right at that time when Michael goes to Motown, that's when Diana tells Michael that you're not a Jackson. That's what hinders his natural development. Plus, he's pulled in between 2 families, and he's not fully embraced by either one of them. He's not really a Jackson, and he's not really part of Diana Ross's family and shit, right? He's part of both families, but not really part of either one of them. And now he's a big star. He's having to deal with all of these situations of what's occurring in his life.
That was motivation.
Was it, you know, Were there other kids in your school who had green eyes, or were you kind of unique?
Okay, he's going to talk about his green eyes here. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward a little bit. Let's see if I can get past that.
When she moved away from the block, she moved to
Back then? 52, you were 12.
Here we go.
That's when you met Diana Ross?
Yeah.
And she lived 4 doors down?
4 doors down the street from me.
Okay, and she was a little bit younger than you?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and was she singing back then?
Not when I met her. I didn't even know she could sing.
So, real quick, just, so Smokey's saying Smokey was 12, so that means Diana would have been 8, because she's like 4 years younger than him, right? So, okay, so he's 12, so at that time, with Smokey Robinson, he just told you that he started singing in the band at 11 because he wanted to get the attention of the girls, right? By him singing in the band, that caused him to get attention from the girls. Right? So he just told you that he meets Diana when he's 12. So right now, after he's just got into that lifestyle where he's starting to sing, get attention from the girls, then Diana moves onto the block, right? And so the other thing is that Smokey's mother died when Smokey was 10. Okay, so Smokey's older sister, who's 17 years older than Smokey, she's married and she has children. She moves into Smokey's house. Right there on Belmont. She moves into Smokey's house and she starts to raise her own family and raise Smokey in Smokey's house. That's where he lived with his mother, but his mother had died. So then, so right after Smokey's mother dies, that's when he starts the group. That's when he starts to get the interest from the girls, the attention and stuff, right? That's the motivation. He just tells you, that's the motivation. We wanted the girls. He's telling you the girls is a major part of what he's doing in the band, right? And then he's got his house. He's got no parents in his house. I've heard him say that his house was like the playground, you know, like kind of thing where he says sometimes he'd go to his friend's house and he'd be like, hey, where's Jimmy at, right? And they'd go, Jimmy, he's at your house. And he'd say, well, that's because everybody was just hanging out at my house all the time. His house was like a hangout spot for all these teenagers. And part of that's what I'm saying is because he didn't have parents, because there's a different environment of which he's living in there. And it's revolving around the band and the girls, getting the girls. That stuff is all what's taking place. And I told you, he's just met Diana Ross right around that same time.
Yeah, when I found out she could sing was when she moved away from the block. She moved to a place called the Brewster Projects. And after we started Motown, she called me one day and she said, hey, Smoke, I got this group, you know, and I want you to hear us so you can sign us up at Motown. You know? So I said, okay, I didn't know she was a singer till then.
Right there too. See how Diana's wanting to go to Motown, right? Because she's hooked up with Smokey and the Berry. The Berry's the one that made the deal with her to get her kid away. And now, before that they were actually signed to Motown as a group, because Berry was insisting that they become 18 before he signs any of them, they were working as like secretaries and shit. There was stuff where they were hanging around and working as secretaries that they were around there all the time and shit, right? There's a lot more to that story. And that's kind of, it goes into the story that Diana has a relationship with Berry Gordy too. That's how when she didn't instantly get the record deal, she's like, well, I'm coming here. Right? You guys owe me. So she starts like working as like a secretary, right? She's just pushing her way around, bossing her way in. That's how she gets the name The Boss, because she's got the connection to them that she abandoned her child for them as they're developing Motown. This is what's occurring all at that time.
Yeah.
Okay, but she wrote a book at one point, and she said the two of you actually were dating at one point.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Did that last a long time, or was that just sort of brief?
Well, it lasted probably longer than it should because I was married at the time.
Oh, so this happened later.
Yeah, that happened later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now he's saying, okay, so he says, Diana wrote in this book that you guys were dating, okay? But Smokey can't tell you that they were dating when Diana was young, when he got her pregnant, because she's young, and he got her pregnant. So he doesn't want anything to do with that time, right? So he admits to it. He admits to dating Diana, but in order for him to admit to dating Diana, he's also got to admit to committing adultery against his wife. But that's okay. He'll admit that, because he's older, and it does not have the negative stereotypes that's going to come with him being with Diana when she's 13, and that's when Michael Jackson was born. So he can't tell you about that, right? So he jumps up and tells you, yeah, I was committing adultery. So he admits to committing adultery because he doesn't want to tell you the truth. Now, watch, I'll show you the truth, right? So this is Diana We're talking about the same moment in time in history, and now when she's in love with Smokey, and we're going to pin down the date of when she's actually in love with Smokey.
But who was your first love, though? Yeah, who was that?
You mean, are you talking about man, are you talking about man love?
Oh, yeah, I should have specified that, I'm sorry.
Smokey Robinson was my first love. I really loved him. You know, I have stories. People think my life or my career started with Motown, but really it started with Smokey. Smokey lived on Belmont. We lived on the same street. I was very close with his cousin, Sharon Burston. And I used to sleep over. You know, I had kids that sleepovers at Sharon's house, and I used to listen to the Miracles sing in the basement. And that was before I came to Motown. That was before the Supremes. And to me, I loved him. Because there was a time where when I first heard his record on the radio and I realized that you might be able to sing and make a record. I mean,
okay. So she tells you here, she's telling you about being in love with Smokey, and then she pins down the exact date of when this is occurring, because she says, I remember when I heard his first song on the record, on the radio, and I realized that you could actually make a record and it could be on the radio and shit, right? So there's the Miracles, Got a Job. That's the first song. Release date, March 3rd of 1958, okay? So Michael's born August 29th of 1958. Okay, so at this time, Diana's pregnant. She's pregnant by March 3rd. She's pregnant, but they haven't made the plans to give the kid away. They're still trying to figure it out, what's going on. But Smokey, when Smokey was asked about having the relationship with Diana, he moved the relationship up a few years to when he was already married, and he tells you, yeah, I was having an affair with my wife and shit. That's what he tells you, right? But Diana, she just told you that she was in love with Smokey, and she pins down the exact date of when it is, and she tells you it was right at the time of where she realized that you can make a record and it could be on the radio. That's in March 3rd of 1958, which is a few months after Michael Jackson is conceived. That's just a fact. Diana says she's in love with Smokey at this time. This is the time that Diana's telling you that she's in love with Smokey, at this time. This is the time that Michael Jackson was conceived. That's the exact time. This is when Diana's telling you that she's in love with Smokey. Smokey admits to dating Diana, but he admits to dating her while he's already in a marriage with Claudette. Okay? There's like, you have to get into it and actually explain what's actually taking place here and stuff, right? Because I know Diana had dated Eddie Kendricks of the Temptations, okay? But that relationship, I believe, with Eddie Kendricks was happening when Diana was 15 years old, which is right after she gives Michael away, and then she moves to the Brewster Douglas Projects, and then she's dating Eddie Kendricks is the guy with the high voice in the band The Temptations, the one that sings high. So that's Eddie Kendricks. So Diana was in a relationship with Eddie Kendricks. So the relationships with Eddie Kendricks would have been before the time of what Smokey's saying that he was in dating her, right? But Diana just referred to her first love as being Smokey, and then she told you the date. So she's telling you that the love relationship that she had with Smokey and what was going on there was taking place before she got into a relationship with Eddie Kendricks, because that's after she's given the child away, is the Eddie Kendricks stuff. It's this stuff, the actual dates of where it starts with Smokey is here. It's with this, it's right at the time when Michael is conceived. So I just want to show you more about that actual time right here. So it says, it's talking about the song. It says, this was penned by then teenage partnership of Berry Gordy and Smokey Robinson. Berry Gordy's first major professional achievement was writing a series of hits for Jackie Wilson, beginning with Reet Petite in 1957, okay? See, 1957, Berry Gordy is just starting to actually become a real songwriter in the music industry. He's just started this. And then it says soon afterwards, he began producing records, teaming up with aspiring singing songwriter Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. Okay, so because he meets let me go back over here real quick. Okay, because Smokey meets Berry Gordy. Smokey meets Berry Gordy in August of 1957. And what you just saw, I showed you in the one video with Diana, that Diana's in love with Smokey Robinson at that time, and she's able to sleep over in his house because the thing with Smokey's living arrangements with his oldest sister, but his oldest sister has a daughter that's the same age as Diana. So Diana can sleep over in the Smokey's house because Diana's friends with Smokey Robinson's niece named Sharon. So not only is Diana in love with Smokey, at the exact time where Michael Jackson is conceived, Diana is sleeping in his house, right? And then later than that, Smokey tells you that he's hooked up with Diana in a relationship. So you're saying later. So I tell people that this happened at this time, and they say, oh no. But they're admitting to having an affair. Smokey's admitting to having an affair with his wife, with Diana, just a few years after this. Maybe they had relationships prior, because Smokey's telling you that he's in a band, and one of the main reasons of being in a band is so he can get attention from these women. Well, one of these women that he's getting attention from is Diana, who lives just a few doors down, who sleeps over the night in his house because of the situation of the friendship and all this stuff. And then Diana is telling you that that was her first love. But no, it's impossible. No, it couldn't be possible that she got pregnant. No, it's not possible. What are you talking about? Everything I'm showing you of the actual environment of what's occurring here is showing you that it's damn well very possible. And you people still can't get to the point where you can just ask, can this be true? It's definitely fucking true.
After I got married, after I got them signed up in Motown and all that, that's when that started.
Okay. Well, when you were 14, this was 1954, Aretha Franklin actually had her first baby. She was 12 years old at the time. Were you guys still close during this time?
We've been close all of our lives since we first met, yeah.
Okay, so 54, so that's a few years before Diana gets pregnant. Just a few years. So Diana would be aware then that Aretha, because they lived all in the same neighborhood and stuff, right? So I'm sure Diana's aware of Aretha getting pregnant, and Aretha's only 12 years old. Aretha's only 12 years old at the time. And people are like saying, Diana couldn't get pregnant because Diana's almost 14 and stuff. And they're acting like, that's so young and shit. Dude, Aretha got pregnant at 12.
Yeah, we were close.
How did she really react to that, being so young, to have a child?
Well, of course, being as young as she was, to be pregnant, when she found out she was pregnant, she panicked. Yeah. Of course, because, 12, come on now. So she panicked, and she was highly upset about that. But, there it was. Yeah. And so there was nothing she could do at that point.
Right. Have the baby.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nothing she could do at that point. See? Nothing you could do. What do you, see? The girl says, I'm pregnant. And the people said, what are you going to do? So he's saying there's nothing she could do. Because, what'd she do? She had the baby. Okay, but Diana, it's like, so Diana tells Smokey, I'm pregnant. And they're like, okay, well, let's figure out what we're going to do. They start figuring out, what are we going to do? Smokey tells Berry Gordy, hey, I got this girl pregnant. Because this is just natural progression of what would have happened. Diana would have told Smokey. Smokey would have told Berry Gordy. Berry Gordy is saying, shit, dude, we got a problem. Dude, I'm building a record company around you, Smokey. You're 18. You're married. Well, at that time, he's not married. It's like right around that time he's dating Claudette. I have to check the actual marriage date. But I don't think he's actually married at that first time there. He's just still dating Claudette. He hasn't actually got married to her yet. But he's like, you're 18, Smokey. She's 14. Okay? Berry Gordy's trying to build a record company, right? And he's like, dude, you're 18. She's 14. He's like, and so that's what I just showed you there, was that Berry Gordy had not established Motown. It's happening at this exact time of what you track back in history. You'll see that it tracks back to the exact time of where Michael Jackson is conceived, abandoned, given to the Jackson family. You'll find out what coincides exactly with those things occurring is the development of Motown is occurring at the exact same time. It's occurring between these people is what's actually occurring here. And so you can see the environment of what's taking place in Smokey Robinson's life. You can see what's taking place in Diana's life. You can see that she's in love with him, that he admits to having a relationship. He'll admit to having an affair with Claudette, but he can't admit to having a love child with Diana. He can't admit to that, but he'll admit to having an affair. I mean, it shows you like the crazy shit of what's going on and shit. But so this shows the actual time and events of what's occurring right there at that time. And I show you the dates. And so I show you how Smokey had just started to be a songwriter. How he hooks up with Smokey, how Berry Gordy hooks up with Smokey. They instantly start writing songs. He releases the one song, and that's exactly about the same time about where Diana would be telling him, oh, by the way, I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant and shit, right? So now Berry Gordy's already recorded Smokey. He's already got the vision of starting to build a record company with him. This is all in the works, and they're only a couple years away from Motown. They're on the verge of that, right? So at that moment in time, if just think about the reality. At that moment in time, with this is what's occurring, and Smokey tells Berry, do you think Berry's just going to say, oh, well, okay, she can have the kid, okay, well, we'll just deal with it? Or would they do a thing and say, well, how are we going to deal with this? What should we do? What should we do? How are we going to deal with this, right? And you got a young girl. Don't you think there's an opportunity that her parents would allow her to give her child away? Don't you think that that's possible? That they would talk to them and say, look, we're building this company. This could be a problem and stuff, right? So obviously we want to take care of the kid. We're going to help the kid. We're going to do stuff, but we can't do anything until we've built our company and become successful. If we don't do that, it helps nobody, right? And so they made the thing. Yeah, go ahead. Give your kid away, Diana. You don't want to be a parent right now. You know, you don't really want to do that shit, right? Because she would have seen what was happening with Aretha Franklin. They would have seen what was happening with the girl having a kid from a young age. That would have been like, I don't want to do that and shit, you know. All the stuff of what's going on. But she also would have seen Aretha getting pregnant, so then that's where like that's natural sexual progression of the natural development of what I'm saying is that Diana's natural sexual development had, who was she focusing on? Smokey. She tells you she's in love with Smokey. Right at that time where she would be developing naturally sexually and experimenting, she tells you she's in love with Smokey. She tells you she's sleeping in his house. She tells you that her whole reason of understanding how she become a star is because Smokey made a song, recorded a song, and it came on the record. It's all them. It's all the connections right there. And you go up and when you see them, when they hook up with Michael, you see the relationship that's taking place with everything is what's going on. You see these people are all together. That's what's going on here. You know, I'm not just making shit up. And if I don't have the facts to prove it, I'll say I don't have the facts to back this up yet. But like this stuff, this is facts. I've got Diana being in love with Smokey, sleeping in his house, right at the time the Motown's being developed, all that stuff, right? That's evidence. That proves like what I'm saying. This is like such hard. It shows the motive and opportunity. It shows everything. Everything is right there. All the time about where this actually happened in the real world. It all happened. Plus, you see Smokey. You can see the essence of Michael Jackson and Smokey. It's the same thing. He came out singing when he was young. He loved to sing. You know, by the time he's in 11, he's in a band. They're freaking working it, you know. They're doing it. It's the same story and shit. Because it was in his blood. Same bloodline, same path, same life history, same origins. It's the same shit. It's the same story. Michael Jackson is the child of Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson. All you dumb, fake-ass, loser, thieving, scumbag, fraud Michael Jackson fans, you're all fake. You people can't deal with my story because you're stupid. You're stupid, slave, fucking total losers, right? And then because you're such slave, total fucking losers, you think, I know, I'll connect myself to the greatest, Michael Jackson, the king of pop. That'll stop me from being the total piece of shit loser I am. But then you go up and you find out that when somebody explains to you Michael Jackson's true life, not only can you not understand it, you fight against it. You don't want anything to do with it because in reality, you fucking fans are losers.